So this is the 12.4 worksheet number 1. We're factoring trinomials. So when we do this, we're going to look at this final term and we're going to think about the numbers that can be multiplied to make it. And we're just dealing with whole numbers right now. And then we need to find which one of those factors, because some of these, let's say like 12, it's going to have factors of 6 and 2 and 4 and 3 and 12 and 1. So we need to find the ones that also have a sum of our middle term. So they have to multiply to this term, have a product of, and they have to add to this term, have a sum of. Okay, so when I look at 5, 5 is easy. It only has two factors, two whole number factors, 5 and 1. And sure enough, they add up to 6. So it is going to be x plus 5, x plus 1. You can always double check it. Multiply, x times x is x squared. X times 1 is x. 5 times x is 5x. You put those together, that's the 6x. And then 5 times 1 is 5. So these two numbers, they're going to multiply to this, 5, and they're going to add up to this, 6. So sliding over. When I look at 35, I automatically think 7 and 5. Those are really the only two, besides 35 and 1. And when you see this, that it's negative, and this is positive, that can only mean one thing. I'm multiplying two negative numbers together. Okay, because I have to create a positive. So this is going to say x minus. They're both negative because they add up to a negative. The only way to make a positive product is two positives or two negatives. Two positives are never going to add up to a negative, so I know they're negatives. And it doesn't matter the order that you put them, but it is 7 and 5, and you can run it across. Now I put x. Obviously, it's r, but we're obviously much more concerned about this right here. All right, 23. Okay, in here, we're looking at negative 48. Got a lot of choices here. 24 and 2. You've got 12 and 4. Different things like that. But if you think about it, it's not going to be a really big number because the other number has to be within 2. They're going to add up or subtract to 2. And I say subtract because you'd be adding a negative, so it's like subtracting. So the other numbers that come to mind for me that multiply to 48 are 8 and 6. Now they're going to multiply to a negative, so one of them is negative. And when I look at this, I know that it's positive, which means when I added these together, there was more positives to start with. So the negative must be on the 6. Multiply to get this, add, you get positive 2, so it's x plus 8. And again, it's an n, not an x. And then n minus 6. And if you wrote it in the opposite order, n minus 6, n plus 8, that doesn't matter. It's the same thing. All right, over here, when I see 12, I think 4 and 3, but they're never going to equal 4. There's always 12 and 1. They're never going to equal 4. So I know it's 6 and 2. But I'm going to have to figure out which one's the positive and which one's the negative, because they are multiplying to a negative, so one of them is negative. So when you look at this and you see it's negative, that means you had more negatives to start with. So out of the two numbers, put the negative on the bigger one. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. When you multiply, you get negative 12. So x minus 6, x plus 2. And again, it's a. I keep saying x. 13. Okay, when I see 12, I think 6 and 2. That's not 7. So it's 4 and 3. They're adding up to a positive. They're multiplying to a positive. So it's two positives, x plus 4, x plus 3. Multiply to 12, add up to 7. 24, I think 8 and 5 when I see 40, but that's not going to get me 14. So it's another one. It's going to be 10 and 4. Two positives multiply to a positive, but they add up to a positive. Two negatives also multiply to a positive, but they add up to a negative. So this is z minus 10 and z minus 4. All right, number 3. Multiplying to 12, and they're going to have to be within one of each other if they're adding up to a 1 or a negative 1. So it's not 6 and 2 or 12 and 1. We're looking at 4 and 3. And you got to figure out which one's negative. One of them's negative because they multiplied to negative 12. And we end up with the negative, which means the bigger of the two has got to be the negative. Add those together, you get negative 1. So x minus 4, x plus 3. Okay, negative 18. 9 and 2 is not going to get me to 3. 18 and 1 is not going to get me to 3. So it's 6 and 3. I end up with a negative, which means I have more negatives. X minus 6, x plus 3. And again, x's, these should be y's. These should be s. Not a big deal. More focused on the numbers than the letters. All right, 25. 72. Right off the top of my head, I'm thinking 9 and 8. And sure enough, they're going to make me 17. So that's good. Okay, multiplying to a negative, adding up to a positive. So one's a negative, one's positive. It's not 4 and 3. You look up here, similar one. It's going to be 6 and 2. But now when they add together, the negative is going to have to be on the 2. So that you have 6 minus 2 basically to get 4. So they're multiplying to negative 12 because one of them's negative, but adding up to positive 4. All right, 24 is one of those ones that have lots of factors. 12 and 2, 24 and 1, 8 and 3, 6 and 4. So 8 and 3 are going to be the numbers. I know 8 and 3 can become a 5 somehow. They're multiplying to a negative, so one of them's negative. They're adding to a negative, so it's the bigger one that's negative. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So d minus 8, d plus 3. 26. 36, I think 6 and 6, right? But that's not going to make 9. How about 9 and 4? Nope. 9 and 4 are not going to make 9. 12 and 3. 12 and 3 are going to make 9. Now, how are they going to do it? One of them is going to be negative. I need this final answer to be negative, so put it on the bigger one. Negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9. A minus 12. A plus 3. Okay, number 5. 21 is 7 and 3, and 10 I can make with a 7 and a 3. That one's easy. The all positive ones tend to be easier. Products of 7 is just 7 and 1, and they're going to add up to 8. So x plus 7, x plus 1. Multiply to 7, add up to 8. 42. Could be 21 and 2. That's not going to work. 7 and 6. That could make 13, right? 7 and 6. Now, they're going to have to add up to a negative. So video cut out here. We're going to splice these together. So we're looking over here. We're multiplying to a positive, and we're adding to a negative. So that can only be two negatives. It's going to be w minus and w minus. Two negatives adding up to a negative, multiplying to a positive. And so it's going to be 7 and 6 because they add up to negative 13 and they multiply to positive 42. Number 6, when I see 15, I think 5 and 3, and they will add up to 8. 10 would be 5 and 2. I need to add up to a negative, multiply to a positive. So again, that means two negatives. And then it's 5 and 2. Negative 5 and negative 2 is negative 7. Multiplied is positive 10. 14 is 7 and 2. Now, they're going to multiply to a negative. So one's positive and one's negative. They got to add up to a negative. So I need more negatives than positives. So negative 7 plus 2. 10 and 3 here. So 10 is going to be a 5 and a 2. That'll work. One's positive, one's negative. I need more negatives, so it's going to be a negative 5, positive 2. 18. 13 is only going to be a 13 and a 1, right? And since it's a negative, one of them's negative, 13 and 1. And it means I'm going to have more negatives to create a negative 12. So negative 13 plus 1. 29. 24, let's see, 6 and 4, not going to work. 8 and 3 is going to work. X plus 8, x plus 3. Those add up to 11 and multiply to 24. Number 8, well, 11's easy. It's 11 and 1. And if you're going to add up to negative 10, then the negative must be on the 1. 11 and negative 1 is 10. So C plus 11, C minus 1. Okay, 19. 25 is 5 and 5. 27 is 9 and 3. Adds up to a negative, multiplies to a positive, so that's two negatives. Minus 9, minus 3. 14 is 7 and 2. And out of those two numbers, I need more positive. So my 7 is going to be the positive. Y plus 7. Y minus 2. Double check it. Multiply to negative 14. Add up to 5. 24. When I look at the 10, I see 12 and 2. And I got more negatives. So it'd be a minus 12 and a plus 2. If you tried 8 and 4, we're not going to get... I'm sorry, 6 and 4. We could get here. Right? We've got an option here on number 20. It could be 6 and 4. And it'd be, oh, see, mine doesn't work actually. 6 and 4 is going to have to be. So I went too fast here. Take a look. 12 and 2 multiply to 24, right? And then I said, oh, much more negatives. And then I add the 2. But here's the problem. Yeah, these add up to negative 10, but I changed the problem. This is not going to multiply to positive 24. This is going to be negative 24. So this is no good. So we got to be careful here. 6 and 4 also make 10. I saw 12 and 2 make 10, and I just went with it. Normally, as soon as you find the numbers that will give you a number, it's going to work. But here, it's going to have to be 6 and 4. They're multiplying to a positive, adding to a negative. They're both negative. 6 and 4. All right, over here, 50, I think 25 and 2. That's not going to work. 10 and 5 will work. And it's going to be D plus 10 and D minus 5. The reason I chose that is because I know I got to add up to a positive, so I need more positives than negatives. Okay, number 10. So I have to multiply to 3, positive 3, add up to a negative. So I'm going to have two negatives here. And they got to add up. Well, the only products of 3 is 3 and 1. So negative 3 and negative 1, they add up to negative 4. All right, when they multiply to a negative, only one of them is negative. So it's y minus and y plus. 24, 6 and 4, not going to get me there. 8 and 3 can. Since they add up to a negative, I know it's a negative 8, positive 3, adding up to negative 5, multiplying to negative 24. 32, 48. So it could be 24 and 2, but that's not going to give you 16. 12 and 4 will give you 16. And they multiply to 48. 6. Okay, they're multiplying to a positive, adding to a negative. So automatically I know we're dealing with two negatives here. And it's 3 and 2. 36, I think 6 times 6, but that's not going to get me to 13. Could be a 12 times 3, but that's not going to get me to 13. So the one other factors that I'm not thinking of right now is 9 and 4. 9 times 4 is 36, and 9 plus 4 is 13, both positive. Plus 9, plus 4. All right, and 33. Multiplying to a negative, so one of them's negative, one of them's positive, and they're going to have to be within one of each other to get me a negative 1. So that's 6 and 5. And if I'm ending up with a negative, I need more negatives. So the 6 is the negative and the 5 is the positive. Okay, now we're going to use this skill to actually solve these. So first, let's factor this. So looking at 64 and 16, when I see 64, I think 8 and 8. And 8 and 8 can make 16. Now they're multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. So I know this is two negatives, and it's 8 and 8. They multiply to positive 64. They add up to negative 16. So I can rewrite this, since it's the same binomial twice, times itself, as x minus 8 squared. So real quick, let's use the quadratic formula to prove that this worked. So a equals 1, and b equals negative 16, and c equals 64. So negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a, everybody's favorite. So I'm plugging a negative in for b, so it's going to say negative, this negative, and then when I plug this in, it's negative 16. So these will become positive, plus or minus. It's going to be negative 16 squared. If you put that in your calculator, negatives must be in parentheses when you use an exponent. minus 4 times 1 times 64, all over 2 times 1. All right, when you complete this whole bottom here, you're actually going to get 0. This is going to become positive 16. Square root of 0 over 2. Well, square root of 0 is just 0. So 16 plus 0 over 2, well, that's the 0 doesn't matter, right? So that's 8. 16 minus 0, the 0 doesn't matter. It's 8. And so the 8 is the only answer. So explain the correlation here. 8 is the value to plug in for x to make a binomial equal to 0. So if this whole thing was set equal to 0 like it was here, I can factor it to this. It equals 0, and so I have to figure out what number goes in for x to make this equal to 0. So it would be 8. Has to be 8, because 8 minus 8 creates a 0 in both of them. And so you don't have to list it twice. That is the only answer. It's just 8. Okay, 35, same idea now. So a little bit of a tricky one with the 500, right? So you're thinking maybe 100 times 5, but that's not going to give you 5. Maybe 50, you could divide by 50, but that's going to be 50 times 10. That's not going to give you 5. So you go, what other numbers go into 500? Well, we just talked about 150. So 25 is another reasonable number to go in. We know 25 will fit in. So 500 divided by 25 is 20. So 20 and 25, that could make a 5. One's negative because we multiplied into this negative. And I need more positive, so the negative's on the 20. So this is going to be x minus 20, x plus 25. They multiply to negative 500. They add up to 5. All right, quadratic formula now. A is 1, B is 5, C is negative 500. So negative b is negative 5 plus or minus b squared is 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 500, over 2 times 1. When you complete this, you get 2025 under here over 2. Well, square root of that is 45. So you have negative 5 plus or minus 45 over 2. You're going to split that 2 ways. So this is 40 over 2, which is your 20. And negative 5 minus 45 over 2 is negative 50 over 2, negative 25. Okay, so how do these correlate? Same answer, basically. They are the values of x that make the expression equal 0. Because if I plug in 20 to both spots, over here I get a number, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to have 20 minus 20 equals 0. And 0 times this is 0. Or negative 25, again, makes a 0, and I multiply, and I'm good to go.